I'm excited to talk with you about this album, which is at number 59 on Apple Music's 100 Best Albums of All Time. We've taken on a pretty lofty ambition here, Matt Helders, by trying to create a list in 2024 that creates hierarchy in the arts at a time when there's more art being released than ever before, and most kids aren't thinking in list ways. But the way we look at it is an album like AM, to us, I'm so happy it's on the list. To me, it felt timeless the day it came out, and I feel like I could put it on at any given moment in time, and it perfectly encapsulates not only where the band was at, but also where I'm at any moment in my life. It moves with me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's something that it still comes on quite a bit in my life. Not that I'm just like sitting listening to my own music, but like my kid loves listening to that one, and there's certain songs on that album that she loves listening to. So, and it doesn't feel like it was 11 years ago, whatever it was when we made it.
You know, Alex, as a writer, you've been the closest, you and your friends, to his process ever since the band began. You see how he moves and how he finds the character that's going to help tell the story, to unveil whatever he wants to unveil in that moment. You see right through it. It belongs to us when we hear it, but we can only use our imagination. You're there. What kind of mood was Alex in, without betraying any trust, but just from an observational point of view? Where was he at in terms of the way he was moving through his life when he was writing these songs? Because they're so light on their feet, and there's so many of them are still sitting in that living room at 2 a.m. with the blinds drawn,
Yeah. I think it was just a particularly sort of like fun time for him. And like career-wise and personal life. Like I said, we just moved, and me and him were living together at that time. We'd like got this place together in LA, so we're just like experiencing all of that. So we were really just sort of enjoying that part of his lives. And he was, I think he was just in a good place in terms of like having fun with it. So then it meant he was having fun with the writing too. And the way we were recording was just sort of like relaxed and easy. It's one of those though, that record, if we didn't have any sort of deadline, we'd probably still be making it now. Because we kept like seeing what was around the corner. We're like, oh, what if we try this?
Yeah.
And he was sort of wearing his influences on his sleeve a bit more than he had done before, and it was sort of like all the hip hop stuff was coming in a bit more in the influences, and then how to make that sound like us still. And but yeah, I think part of that was just enjoying everything around it too.
What were your drumming influences on this record? Because again, your performance on every Arctic Monkeys album is very different, and this one feels like it's very powerful, but it lacks some of the kind of frantic energy of previous records, and it certainly isn't where you've ended up at this point in your career, which is really serving at the altar of the song very delicately and tastefully. So, what were you trying to achieve with your parts on this?
I think as a whole, the band was sort of influenced in how a band like Black Sabbath can be heavy with a few elements.
Groove. Yeah.
And it's not just like throwing a load of sounds at it. And I find that with the drums too. There's like moments where you can sort of like have a bit of flair, and then there's moments like with Do I Want to Know, where it's like you're letting everyone else do the talking, and you're just there sort of like keeping everybody steady. So I think Black Sabbath was a big one for me. I've always sort of had I think I learned to play drums playing along to hip hop, so that's always in the background somewhere. But when I really got into drums, I was into like Led Zeppelin and stuff. So like the heavy side of it comes from there.
You know what your feelings are about AM and about that time in your life, and the sound and the feeling of perfectly capturing like the wide open first impressions of a life in America with means.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's kind of what it is.
It's true. It is. It's weird how it always lines up with just a big change in lifestyle and life that I'm still in. Like I'm still here.
Yeah.
And and even again, like that Black Keys tour was like a pivotal thing for us, because like until you're on something like that, you don't really see most of these places or play most of these places.
Yeah.
Because there's no like call for it sometimes. And like we got to play in all these different places and also like win over some crowds. We'd never really been the support band. We'd obviously been lucky enough in like England and Europe to like sort of skyrocket to a position where we were like headlining. And as much as we tried to like hold back, we just were there, whether we liked it or not. And like here, we got to sort of like dip our toe in it and be the underdog a little bit. And then you start to see people in like our merch at the front and waiting for Are You Mine and showing up early to listen to us. So like it all like came along at the right time. Like that record, that tour leading into making this record, living here all together, and then sort of seeing it out and then touring that record just became, it just became like a pivotal thing, I think.
Do you think that like the success of an album like AM, which again became this kind of very loose, hipped, fun, sort of California wide open man, whose house party we going to now type of experience, so beautifully captured for all the nuances of the good times and the tough times. Do you think that when Alex achieves that so succinctly and so perfectly, that he feels instinctively like, I cannot go back to that party. Like I cannot be that guy again. Like, God forbid I become that writer where everyone wants that from me. Even though we kind of weren't done with that album. I would have loved a double album in the AM era. But he has to almost leave the party.
Yeah, I think that's true. But that's kind of more than a metaphor than you probably even realize as well for him. But I think there was a moment where we consciously tried to see what it would be like if we did an AM type of thing. And there's this weird version of I forget what song it is that we did. Oh no, in fact, no, it was even on AM, we tried to do certain songs more in the style of like Are You Mine? And it didn't quite, that felt a bit forced, like we were trying to like really like bring the rock too much to some of these songs that needed to be a bit more soulful and like hip hop sounding. And there is a weird version that I've got somewhere of like Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High that sounds a bit like Are You Mine? That is like really fun to listen to, but it just wouldn't have worked. So I think he is, I think once he's done with something, he really has to like feel like he can move on to the next thing. And it's like, because he's given everything to that moment and there's nothing left after that, I don't think.
Well, it speaks to his ability to write from a character's point of view too. And we're so obsessed with our favorite writers and artists that it's hard for us not to try to align the songs with their the lives of the people who wrote them, because it makes it more of a human experience. But Alex is a character-driven artist. He does write from a character's point of view, and this was that particular era for that particular character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and while he's doing it, he's fully in it, and then when he's not, he's on to the next one.
So what's it like when he has to put that? When you're on stage and you can see him, and he's going from being the person who's singing songs from the car, which are some of the most beautiful, incredible songs any writer's written in my lifetime. And then it's like, oh, I'm looking at the set list, here comes Arabella, or here comes Why Do You Only Call Me When You're High. Like, do you see sometimes almost like he has to make a change in the way that he kind of...
Like a shift in posture or something?
A little bit.
Yeah, there is. And I think that kind of is also often planned ahead a little bit. Like, there's a lot of thought that goes into the set list in general anyway, but also for those reasons of like what's gonna, like sonically what's gonna make sense going into each other, but also like me, how can I be this person and then back into that person? Like one of these characters is 17 years old and one of them's like 36 or so it is kind of weird. I like don't always understand how he can do it, but he manages it somehow.
I think it's very gracious and it's a gift, and I'm always really sort of very grateful with any artist, in particular an artist like Alex, who is Bowie-esque to me. I think he's Bowie. I think he is a shape-shifting human who writes from a character's point of view with great detail, and I'm always really grateful that he's able to bring these characters onto the same stage and make them make sense, because it's like a Broadway play every night trying to do that.
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, Dance Floor character is nowhere near the character way over here.
No, and I think AM we were probably method acting more than we ever have as well.
I think you were. It is a masterful body of work, man. It's a perfect 12 songs. Number 59 in Apple Music's 100 Best Albums of All Time. And I love that somehow through this voting process and everything that we've sort of put together to try and make this make sense for us and not just reflect other people's lists, that, we have these albums that are sort of made in the last 10, 15 years starting to really, knock some of these old out.
That's a good sign, isn't it? Yeah.